Have you ever wondered why Jesus, the master of spiritual wisdom, spent his time talking about ancient sowing techniques and fermenting grape juice? Most people think the parable of the new wine and old wineskins is a simple story about out with the old and in with the new. But there is a hidden verse at the end of this story that is so controversial. Early church leaders actually tried to delete it from the Bible. Today we're diving into the details of this double parable to uncover a revolutionary message about transformation, self-righteousness, and why we often prefer a comfortable lie over a challenging truth. The scene of the crime, a tax collector's party. To understand the parable, you have to look at where Jesus was when he said it. He wasn't in a temple. He was at a massive banquet hosted by Levi, also known as Matthew, a former tax collector. While Jesus is reclined at the table with sinners, the Pharisees and the disciples of John the Baptist are watching from the sidelines. They're confused and offended. They ask, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples eat and drink?" Jesus responds first with a wedding metaphor, calling himself the bridegroom. But then, he drops the double parable that leaves them, and often us, scratching our heads. The science of the first century, patches and skins. Let's get into the technical details the original audience would have known instantly. First, the garment parable. Jesus says no one tears a patch from a new garment to fix an old one. Why? In those days, clothes were made of natural fibers like wool or linen. A new piece of cloth is unshrunk. If you sew it onto an old, brittle coat and then wash it, that new patch is going to shrink and pull away, making the original hole even worse. Luke even adds that you've now ruined a perfectly good new coat for nothing. Then comes the wineskins. A wineskin was a leather pouch, often made from goat skin. When new wine, fresh grape juice, was poured in, it would begin to ferment. This process produces gases that expand, stretching the leather to its absolute limit. Once that skin was old and had already been stretched, it became brittle and rigid. If you poured fresh, bubbling new wine into that old, unyielding skin, the pressure would cause it to burst, wasting the wine and destroying the skin. The deep interpretation. Law versus grace. So what was the spiritual point? Traditionally, scholars see the old garment and old wineskins as the Old Covenant, the Mosaic Law, and the man-made traditions added by the Pharisees. The new wine and the new patch represent the gospel of grace that Jesus was bringing. Jesus wasn't trying to patch up the old system of rules and self-righteousness. He was ushering in an entirely new era. The Pharisees wanted to force Jesus' message into their rigid, centuries-old religious schemes, but his message of forgiveness for unclean people was too explosive to be contained by their rules. Jesus was warning that his fresh, vital message would naturally break the structures of those who were stuck in their ways. The teachable twist: who are the wineskins? But here is where it gets even more interesting. Some scholars, looking at Jewish traditions like the Pirkei Avot, suggest the wineskins aren't just religious systems, they are individuals. The old wineskins represent previously trained disciples who are already full of their own opinions and traditions. The new wineskins are the fishermen and tax collectors, the uneducated lowlifes Jesus chose. Think of it like a welder. Who would you rather teach? A complete beginner than someone who already knows how to weld but has bad habits? The Pharisees were so full of their own old wine that they had no room for anything new. They were unteachable. The controversial finale. The old is better. Now we have to address the elephant in the room. Luke chapter 5, verse 39. Jesus ends the parable by saying, "And no one after drinking old wine wants the new, for they say, the old is better." This verse is so shocking because it seems to side with the Pharisees. It's why some early manuscripts actually tried to delete it. But Jesus wasn't saying the old way actually was better. He was making a profound observation about human psychology and the seductive nature of self-righteousness. Once a person has developed a taste for the old wine of earning their own righteousness through rules and sacrifices, they don't want the new wine of grace. The old wine of pride makes you feel good about yourself every time you check a box, like fasting or praying in public. It's comfortable, it's predictable. To someone hooked on that feeling of being better than others, the new wine of humble faith seems undesirable. Your heart as a wineskin. The parable of the wineskins is a call to check your own heart. Are you an old wineskin? rigid, judgmental, and unwilling to change your mind when confronted with the truth? Or are you willing to be a new wineskin, remaining flexible and teachable so that you can receive the fresh vitality of what God is doing today? Transformation isn't about patching up your old life with a few new habits. It's about a complete renewal of the heart. If you found this deep dive helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more detail on the most famous stories ever told. What old habits are you struggling to let go of? Let's talk about it in the comments.